Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between and beyond, welcome back. It's been a while, but here I am with a new video of our Campton Zoo series. Not promising any official comeback, but if the current solution ends up being a permanent thing, then you might expect more activity on this channel again. I'm not gonna go into details now of what has happened since basically last year, but it's been a pretty wild time in my life, so if you're interested in what caused me to basically abandon this channel for almost a year, then you can stay for the Speedbuild part of the video. I'll dedicate some time of this episode to talk more about this whole experience. Maybe I'll add a timestamp or something, so if you're not interested you can just skip it, but I think it's gonna be good for me to vent a bit, but also make sure that anyone who's interested knows what's up, so we're on the same page. For now, let's get back to what this video is about, which is another addition to our zoo. Before we go to creating a new habitat for West African lions, which you know already from the title, I decided to build some sort of monument or landmark to fill the space between the wolves' habitat and the one for lions. I ended up going with an idea of a really big and old tree that maybe is the biggest in the country our zoo is set in, or something like that. In Poland we have this oak tree, which is considered to be the oldest, with estimated age of around 690 years. It's quite an important landmark here, not sure why, but it is. Unfortunately, it's barely able to survive now anyway. There are only bits that are still alive and the rest is just being kept in place by a bunch of supports. But I thought that the idea of a huge tree would make for a nice place to just sit, relax, and because of the location, it's also a centerpiece of our zoo, so it's almost like the saying all roads lead to Rome, but here they lead to the oak tree. Obviously this part is pretty self-explanatory, just a big tree, some signs for guests to read about it, and benches. Now, let's talk about the actual start of this episode, which is the West African lion habitat. As I said earlier, I spent months to basically come back to the series and have had this idea for even longer. I usually try to think of a couple of designs for the enclosure, try to find some inspiration from other European zoos, etc. But this time it was a bit different. At first I couldn't find anything that I would like from real-life habitats. They were all pretty basic, just a normal landscaping and the layout. You know how many tiger enclosures have Mayan ruins incorporated into the design? I wanted my enclosure to be built on the ruins of an ancient Greek theater. In my opinion, lions are probably the most iconic animals just in general. I don't really know why, but they have this royal status, and males are obviously considered to be kings of all animals, so the theater stage would also be like a metaphor of them being portrayed as this idea that we have of them. Just like most cats, people look at them almost as if they are like godlike entity. I also had this idea that is present throughout Europe, and well, probably the most infamous example is the British Museum having art pieces from other countries that they basically stole and claim as their own. So I thought, since the zoo lore is that this land once belonged to some rich and influential family, maybe even some royalty, maybe they were in awe having seen ancient Greek architecture, and as one does, decided they want a theater in the garden, because who doesn't have a giant theater in the garden, right? Eventually, at some point, they either lost this land or abandoned it, and as the city took over it, way later in the future, they renovated a couple of buildings that were possible to save basically, and other ones were either already gone or the city just bulldozed them. The whole auditorium was unfortunately gone at that point, but they were able to save the stage and the backstage part of the theater. And even though it's a fake one, it is the only Greek theater in this country, but since it's not functional, they decided to have probably the most important and famous animal to live in it. Not sure if the story holds up in your opinion, but well, here we are. The habitat ended up being way bigger than I estimated it to be once it's fully done, but I think it's fine. I'm sure the lions are happier having more space than less. So I'm going to dedicate this part to talk about what's been happening off screen, so a trigger warning if you don't do well hearing about mental health problems. I'm gonna put a timestamp, as I said before, when I finish talking about that, for anyone who wants to just skip this part. So, to make a long story short, up until last summer I used to live on my own with my two babies, my ball python and my bearded dragon. The ball python is all safe and healthy and as curious and adventurous as always, as you can see, but my bearded dragon unfortunately passed away last summer due to pancreatic cancer. At least that was the final diagnosis from my vet. Her last month of life, she basically went through any possible type of treatment, even steroids, which are unrecommended for lizards due to the likelihood of damaging the kidneys. But it was the last option, which unfortunately didn't even bother the cancer at all. Unfortunately for me, and for the sake of her quality of life, I decided to put her down. There was no other option. It was either that or just watching her die because she'd starve since she wouldn't eat anything at this point, or the cancer would finally just kill her. This whole thing took several months and heavily affected my mental health. I treat my pets like my family, they're my whole life, so I basically went into a grieving process which basically started a landslide of other problems. I've always been prone to burnouts and have had a couple of them in my life already, but this one was / still is, because I'm not fully sure yet, the longest one I've ever had. It started in the summer of 2023 when my beardie died and basically never ended. At first I thought I was grieving, so obviously I took time to heal, etc. But after half a year I noticed something was off, but I couldn't do anything. I have history of depression and anxiety, so everything basically started coming back, and just as I thought it couldn't get worse, another thing would start. Again, trigger warning for anyone who has problems listening to this kind of stuff, but I eventually went back to a stage where I was only once in my life before, where I basically became suicidal and just lost all of the will to live because I couldn't do anything I love. I was only able to wake up and watch days go by. I ended up going on antidepressants, trying to get out of the situation. I tried therapy in the past, but it wasn't that helpful, so I knew I needed something stronger that can physically alter my brain. Unfortunately, SSRI medication are pain in the ass, and the likelihood of being prescribed the right one straight away is really low. I ended up trying 2 different ones and decided I don't want them anymore. Basically, instead of making me less depressed, they made me feel like a zombie. I felt awful. Eventually, I was advised to try to get tested for ADHD, which ended up being a good call. I also learned that I'm on the autism spectrum, which made a lot of sense. I'm fortunate enough to say that both never caused me too much problems for me to not be able to work, etc. I know that's often a problem to other people that struggle with both of those things or any of them. I developed plenty of mechanisms and ways to go around the issues they present, which up until recently I didn't know were caused by ADHD. But thanks to the diagnosis, I was finally prescribed Wellbutrin, since typical ADHD medications quote-unquote calm you down. My issue was that I couldn't get myself to do anything. I didn't have any motivation, and even if I eventually brought myself to do something, it took a couple of minutes for all of the energy to basically be gone. I don't want to jinx it, but I finally feel able to do things. If I want to do something, I can just do it. If I should do something, it's not that difficult to bribe my brain to do so. It's been only 2 weeks since I started taking the medication, and it's a bit too early to call it. That's why I said I'm not sure if I can call it my comeback. I'd like to, but it's not that simple. It's still quite a chaotic time since everything changes pretty abruptly, but I'm enjoying it. And I can see even my snake being more social with me than for the last year. I'm not sure how much they can pick up on. I know that they can sense some things, as most animals do, obviously including body language, but she for sure changed the way she behaves as well. She was always an angel, but during that time she wouldn't really want to interact with me, but thankfully it's over. Thank you if you listened through this part of the video. Remember to listen to your body because it knows best. Don't try to go against it because you won't like the outcome of that. Now let's go back to the episode and finish that habitat. Even though I had a strong vision for the theater part of the enclosure, the ground level was pretty much a blank page for me. I didn't have any idea for it, but because of the layout, I wanted it to be pretty plain and visible. I would say the African savanna for me is a mixture of empty spots of ground and grass with random bush or a tree, and that's it. Great visibility, not many places to hide, and plenty of open space. At first, I made the enclosure too green, meaning I put too many green plants, and it ended up not looking African savanna-like enough. That's why you can see a slight change where the footage cuts and my second attempt starts. I went with much more of this yellow, dry-like grass and plants to resemble that savanna yellow and orange mix it has. I'm not really sure if I like it or not, but I couldn't really think of any better way to recreate that. I'm much more comfortable making either temperate or tropical based landscapes, but well, when beauty calls, you gotta come up with something, and well, this is the outcome. that's gonna be the end of this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, please leave the like so more people can see. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!